Welcome to Real Health with me, Karl Henry. Folks, saunas and cold plunges are all the rage. And before we even go any further, I have to admit, I've invested in one and I have a cold plunge with it. So this is a topic that I'm very interested in. Are they healthy or are they a health hack? Are they another Instagram social media fad that look brilliant but actually don't deliver a huge amount of benefit? I'm hoping they're not just an expensive hobby. Let's find out. And to cut straight to the medical benefit or the lack of it, I am joined by GP, Chair of the IMO GP Committee and Associate Professor in UCD, Dr Tadhg Crowley. Tadhg, welcome to the show. How are you?
Karl, thanks a million. Pleasure to be here.
I'm sitting here very nervous, very nervous. What's he going to tell me? First of all, I suppose it's important to say it has got very popular, hasn't it? It's back in fashion.
It's back in fashion. It was probably there 20 years ago, but it's back in fashion. And I suppose you look at cold, heat, and now there's the combination of heat and cold. So there's various methods out there, and people are coming to me certainly in practice. I suppose I'm a GP in a community, and you know we're very much holistic, looking at the person. We translate science into their lives, because sometimes when new topics come up or when fashionable topics come up, the science is difficult to sort of really analyse to a level, because for it to be absolutely proven, it needs randomised controlled trials, which needs big numbers of people, and that doesn't always happen. And yet something could be good for a person. The science mightn't back it up and prove it, but at the same time, as the person is living their lives, they might find huge benefit of it. And who are we to say, when the science doesn't say yea or nay, to say no, stop doing it? So we'll go with you. It might be.
You'd be an amazing politician. Let's start there. That was quite the answer.
Well, it's, when I hear someone having spent big money on his plunge pool at home, I'm not going to dive.
Thankfully, I didn't get one of them. I tell you what, actually, you know what I did? I was researching. I was like, these are fierce expensive, and I was blown away by the price tags on them. So I went to my local builder providers, my co-op, and I bought a water tank, an attic water tank, and I went around the yard of the builders providers, getting into the water tanks to see could I actually fit in one, and I found one. 70 quid later.
Wow!
I know, and I stuck a hose connection on it, and that's cold enough for me. And they have been around. Like I saw, there was in one of the newspapers recently of like hot houses going back like hundreds of years in Ireland. We have a national history of heat and being inside a hot house or a sauna.
A hot house. So if we focus on the heat first of all, so there's actually more research on the heat side than actually on the cold side.
Okay.
And even if you didn't believe in science and said, look, we ignore science, you look at history, you have, Finnish people in saunas, Romans, Turkish, Russians, all have a form of heat therapy. Exactly as you said, the Irish people back in 500-600 years ago had rooms that were warmer than other rooms that they used to go in for mental health benefits. In terms of all the studies that are out there are about the Finnish sauna.
Okay.
And, the certain temperature that they have to be at for a certain amount of times per day. And, there's blood pressure benefits, cardiovascular benefits. In terms of some of the research that's out there, they've looked at affecting mental health, affecting lung diseases, affecting arthritis. And there's various studies, none of them big enough to say, yeah, we absolutely agree that it proves it 100%. But in terms of mental health, people find, and then when you look at the Finnish studies, now the problem with the Finnish studies is most people have saunas in their own houses, so they're going 4 to 7 times a week is sort of all the research. So that'd be difficult for your average Irish person to be saying, I'm heading out down to the local gym into the sauna 7 times a week. I think that might
be in trouble. Yeah.
I think it might cause a few domestic rows. It's very good for my mental health, I bet it is.
So anyone listening in, before we go any further, who's doing a doctorate or doing a master's or doing a final year, there could be something in that, looking into them and on the Irish sauna experience and maybe some of the benefits of a trial with a group of people or something like that.
And a lot of the studies have smaller numbers, and it's very hard to get a randomized control trial. But if you look at the individual, even just on a stand-back GP basis, you're taking an hour or half an hour going into a place that doesn't do you any harm, and that you're sitting down in a moment that there's no phones, there's no TV, there's no radio, you have your eyes closed or open, and you have that hour, half hour that you're spending thinking. That I would say is good for a person.
If nothing else.
If nothing else, yes. Yeah. So the Finnish studies on blood pressure is interesting. A lot of the studies, they do measure it over sort of half an hour to a day. The problem is the long term, to get a long term statistical significance of whether they're relevant or not, because a lot of the people that are using saunas are probably health conscious. So there's
Anyway,
sort of yeah.
And would a 24-hour blood pressure monitor last in a sauna?
No, it wouldn't last in a sauna.
That's a challenge too.
So they're checking blood pressure sort of 24 hours later, 1 or 2 days later, and they say, yeah, it definitely has an effect on blood pressure in the short term. Long term, it's a bit more difficult because there's confounders that come in terms of health, in terms of the amount of time you're spending in the sauna, in terms of the number of days you're spending. So it's definitely something.
The rise in sauna seems to tie in with kind of on that younger kind of 20 to 30 cohort. Health is kind of cool now. Are you seeing that in practice? Like health, they go to the gym. They're very food conscious. Sauna seems to be an extension of that with the kind of the outer ones.
Yeah, I suppose my first introduction is I've 4 kids myself.
Okay, wow.
2 under 20s and teenage.
Okay.
So health is a big issue. It's a big factor. They're very much involved in getting involved in sport and exercise. And even for those that aren't doing sport and exercise, going to the gym is a regular feature of their lives in terms of meeting up with their peer groups. So I'd suspect, because most gyms have a sauna nearby, that is now coming in as part of a training routine. But also at the other end of the spectrum, people in their 50s that maybe didn't exercise much when they were younger are now going to the gym a little bit more, and the sauna is a place that they go to, and they suddenly find that they're feeling a little bit better as a result of it. So the science about blood pressure and mental health and all of that mightn't work, but they certainly feel better after being in it for a while.
And of course, mental health, we're seeing the last couple of years, there's a greater awareness around it, there's a greater openness around it.
Absolutely.
That idea of the men's shed, there's a lot of that around, and the sauna, that's how I kind of got into it. We had a sauna in our gym in Dublin or my dad's gym since 1986. I grew up in a sauna, literally. I'd be there before school and after school. But more recently, when we moved to West Cork in the Barrow one along the coastline, there is something mentally beneficial about jumping in, chatting to some random people, or nobody. If there's nobody there, you have it on your own. It's a great tool for mental wellness.
Yeah, I mean, and I like that phrase, mental wellness, because mental health is slightly different. But mental wellness, what can I do to help myself as I'm going through the stages of life? We all go through various stages in life that we're faced with various challenges, and what can I do to help myself? And if that is going to a sauna, or indeed going to an ice bath, that I'm taking time out of my daily life to focus on myself a little bit. Some people may say I'm a bit selfish, but at least you have that time that you're going to focus on yourself. And during that hour, I think you're probably at an increased chance of saying, well, what am I doing wrong? Am I eating enough? Am I actually exercising?
Yeah. You're removing yourself from the
day-to-day bustle of normal life. No, I think if you go back now and look at the science of the cold, obviously, you have the Wim Hof method, where people
very trendy,
submersing themselves in deep cold water. I think that might be.
What's your take on either on a water level, or like I've seen some of the cold treks they do in the Nip, and like I've seen people over in Connemara doing that, and
So I suppose I would have concerns in terms of immersing yourself. First of all, it can cause respiratory difficulties, and if you're out of your depth and you're doing that, obviously you can't do it on your own. You need to be with people. In terms of the electrophysiology of the heart going from normal temperature deep into really cold temperatures, you'd have to be concerned about. On the other
cold shock, we were filming, it's about 2 years ago, and it was January, and we found a guy who swam all year round up in Monaghan, and I had to jump into this lake with him. And I mean, I never forget it. Now, I'm a swimmer. I swim. I'm very confident in the water. I jump into my tub with my tap water. This was another level altogether. And I remember it was like I remember that almost the panic for air when I jumped in. Like there was that cold exposure shock.
Yeah, and I suppose when I used to do a good few triathlons, and you'd go in the sea, and then you'd go into a lake. And my God, when you jump in, it's that you're frozen for a couple of seconds, and it gets you a bit of a shock, and you hyperventilate for a little bit. So you're at a different league of temperatures in relation to some of the, especially the Scandinavians, the temperatures they're talking about. But bringing it back to the population, it's more common to go for a cold shower now, that they go in for a cold shower. And the evidence out there, much more evidence for heat.
Okay.
The evidence on cold, it's very scanty actually. And some of the studies, you wonder, oh God, what were they trying to prove? Like one of the studies I read was 300 people waking people up in the middle of the night, putting their right hand in extremely cold temperatures, found that they were better at mathematics. Doing 4 questions after, you're thinking, wow, what were I'm not sure how practical that is in
like you pointed out the saunas earlier, and the cold therapy, it is that pure mindfulness moment. That's is possibly the real benefit.
Yes, and I think if you have no ill health and you're reasonably well, I think that's probably the benefit that we need to look at people. The person feels better afterwards. So even if the science, and once it doesn't do any harm, and again, going for a cold water dip, the temperature isn't that much different. I think if it's not doing any harm, the science mightn't have proven it yet.
And of course, how you enter that water is important.
Yes,
isn't it?
yes, exactly.
So that idea, like if we live near the beach in West Cork, you see people and they walk from their car to the beach, into the water, and over the course of maybe 4 or 5 minutes, they're eventually submerged.
Yeah, and I'm from Kerry originally. We've Bannastrand out the road.
Yeah.
And exactly as you say, you're looking out going, God, am I going to go into the water today? And you strip off, put on the togs, and it takes a couple of minutes. And then when you go into the water, very few people are diving straight in. They're gradually getting in there.
And that's important from a cold shock perspective on a physical level, that if you are in a sauna or are trying to introduce some cold therapy in, the gradual decrease in temperature is important.
It certainly would reduce any of those cold shock risk factors that we'd be talking about. Interestingly, we were talking about earlier, one of the, I won't say fads, one of the things people are doing now is going from heat sauna straight out to cold.
Yeah.
And I think that's a marrying of the two. Again, the benefits not clear, and that's really in the last couple of years that's become something that you hear more and more people do. In terms of causing ill effects, I don't see it causing any ill effects. And again, people feel that little bit healthier.
Are there certain people or people with certain conditions who shouldn't do either or? So let's start with saunas first. Like because like you do see. The barrels are amazing all around the coastline. They're fabulous. I'm a huge fan of them. We promote them and all of that, which is great. But actually, there isn't a vetting. There's no vetting, which is, do you have high blood pressure? Or what? Maybe that's not important. I don't know.
Well, I think,
are there any things that maybe if you have, you shouldn't go to sauna or should check with your GP first?
Yeah. So I think as you get on in life, your health becomes a little bit more fragile, and any changes in temperature, any changes in dehydration can affect you. So if you're climbing into a barrel on the coastal, you have to be fairly fit and able to climb into the barrel and to get out of the barrel in the first instance. Otherwise, fractures, falls, and all of that. You need to be careful from that point of view. If you're on a lot of medications, and if these medications can be affected by hydration, you need to make sure that if you are going into them, that you're well hydrated, that you don't suddenly find I'm getting dehydrated and I'm started feeling unwell, your blood pressure's dropping and then you're fainting, etc. But in terms of long-term damage, I think if you're taking those precautions, that the more medications you're on, you take it nice and handy. I don't think for most people that it's going to be a problem.
And cold, the same?
Yeah, again, cold, the same. And I think that graduation is important. I think if you're going in, if you've been in the pool and you're in the sauna and you come out and you say, right, I'm going to go for a cold shower, I think that's going to take a couple of minutes. I think if we're going into extremely cold and you might have any cardiac problems like an arrhythmia that can be set off, you have to take precautions.
A colleague of mine who I would imagine probably know him, he was in a lake in the Midlands and came in to do some work with us, and he had a heart rate monitor on, and the heart rate monitor flagged with him that his heart he had an irregular heartbeat.
Yeah.
And we sent him straight into hospital.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Directly after jumping in the lake.
Yeah.
Well, after about 2 or 3 hours later, it was within the same day anyway.
Wow, it had set
amazing.
So, and that's unusual because he was obviously well before.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I've been doing it It was a particularly cold day.
Okay.
It was ice on the surface, and they broke the ice to jump in.
Oh wow, it's very cold. All right, okay. So that's at those temperatures when you're doing that can set it off. I mean, it's amazing though, the heart monitors that you talked about there. I had a heart monitor in my pocket one day. I was at work, and I went out for a bit of food, and I took the heart monitor out because it was in my pocket, and someone started putting it on, and next thing he had an irregular rhythm himself.
Oh,
that
go
he
away.
Never knew about. Yeah.
I wear mine in the sauna.
Do you?
Just for pure research, actually, I find it really interesting.
Yeah.
Because like that, you read Instagram is full of the benefits, as ours are the newspapers. So it's like, okay, let's put this to the test.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to watch your heart as the temperature, as you say, in longer, your heart rate increases.
Yeah.
And it goes up. Like my resting would be 40 to 45 on average.
Okay.
Sauna after about 15 minutes goes up to in around 90. 95 up towards 100.
And how do you feel?
Perfect. Hot. Obviously.
Okay, yeah.
And then once I go out and into my little water tank, it comes back down within about 30 seconds. Once you're in, it jumps, it spikes very, very finely by about 2 or 3 beats, and then it reduces, and it comes right back down to kind of 70, 68, something like that.
Yeah, because my resting heart rate would be 50.
Yeah.
And then I go into a sauna and I go up to 100, and I don't like the sensation.
Yeah.
I feel it. I can't stay in for long in it.
This is very geeky now, but when obviously when you look at the stats from the watch, there's a calorie burn effect.
Yeah.
People which of like about 250 to 300 calories ish per hour, be thereabouts.
The jockeys have been doing it for
sure,
years.
I've loads of friends who are boxers, right? And they're all about. I remember that when I was young. That's gone now. That's no longer trendy. But I remember when I was younger, like you buy the sauna suit and jump in the sauna. Like we would have had people. We would have put a treadmill in saunas for people, and they'd be running for an hour, and they'd be half a stone lighter, all sweat, mad stuff. Yeah. Is there heat? From a sauna perspective, then, do we know from any of the Nordic research, you mentioned it earlier, around the temperature profiling? Is there a temperature, is it 60, 80?
Between 80 and 90 is when the Finnish saunas,
spot.
that's the sweet spot they talk about. In terms of cold, you go back, obviously too cold is very bad. The only evidence, and this is actually from the Mayo Clinic in terms of it, is, because sports teams are hugely into cold baths.
Mm-hmm. And your own background, just before we came on air, you revealed to me you were Kilkenny's a medical advisor.
Yeah, I was their medical advisor for 22 years. Absolutely great time doing it. We had been very successful, so I was very lucky. I came along at a good time. And I suppose ice baths came in the early 2000s. And players find them good. The science, again, at the moment would say that short term, you get benefits from it. Long term, if you keep doing it, especially as an older player, it's not of huge advantage to you. The randomized control trial that was done says your best use of an ice bath is before a big event for 2 or 3 training sessions before the event.
Okay.
That any longer than that, you could actually delay healing.
And that's starting to come to the fore now. I've read that a couple of times lately, where there's the idea of it's the ultimate recovery tool may not actually be true.
Yes, it's like that bell-shaped curve. It's hitting that sweet spot, as you called it earlier, that for a big event, 2 or 3 training sessions beforehand, you use the ice baths, but after that. Interestingly, a lot of human studies come from the equine industry. So in the equine industry, older horses, they actually put ice packs on them before they go running the event.
Why?
Can you imagine if you were going out doing your 10K run and you were walking around the place with an ice? You
really hope someone's listening in who's in any of this, like UL or UCD or Trinity or Galway, and is like, we need to research this stuff. This would be an amazing thesis.
Yeah. I'm not sure would it pass the ethics committee if you're right.
But they'd have to go to all the saunas in the coast of Ireland for research, obviously. But it's absolutely an area that's ripe for, because it's so popular. It'd be fascinating to get some kind of proper research into it.
Because and so much of it, people feel well. So, and then, I suppose does it become a fad, or people actually start feeling well, or what is it? Yeah, absolutely. Especially younger research is coming out, because a lot of the research coming out now is, I won't call it negative research, but showing it doesn't work. Whereas you'd love to get a completely new.
Oh,
This is what people are doing in the community. What are the benefits? Does it work? Is it something that that will require?
Whatever county needs a bit of tourism, they have to do that kind of study, the magic recuperation of the saunas in county, whatever that county.
And it's amazing along the Western Seaboard the number of bats that are springing up along the way.
Well, I lived in Blanchardstown in Dublin originally when I moved to Dublin first, and Blanchardstown was the original place that they used to go in the 1800s for baths and bath recovery. The magic waters of Castleknock and Blanchardstown were renowned for curing everything, which by all accounts they don't now because no one's used them in a long time. But it is there is a component of that it's the placebo effect, isn't it? There is a little bit of that where, if you feel better, great, and whether it's true or whether it's research or not, if it makes you happy, go for it.
And I suppose as a GP, that's one of the aspects that we see. A lot of mental unwellness in terms of people are in ruts in their lives. Life can be very stressful. So you're trying to encourage them to get that exercise, and we go through exercise prescriptions. Great. So if we can poke them along the journey. That's
my next question. Would it be something in the future you would see GPs potentially prescribing? As a form of exercise prescription, or for joint pain or arthritic pain.
I certainly, because so obviously you wouldn't go down the road of prescribing if the science hasn't backed it yet.
Yeah.
But I suppose anything that introduces people to a concept of being healthy and looking after themselves and doing something a little bit better, you'd actively be encouraging. Mm-hmm. So, say take people, the 0 to 5K couch to potato, look at the number of people that have benefited from something that initially started out as a group of people. So if you can say, well, look, there's a group of friends going to the gym, to the sauna, there is that chance that they might say, right, we're going to take up some exercise. One of the big things that I'd find out at the moment is that we need to encourage our elderly population to take up weight training.
Oh, I'm loving. You're gonna have to bring. You have to come here every week. This is great. You're ticking all my boxes. You're like, we have a GP promoting weights.
And interesting, one of the local gyms had a physio came on board and started promoting using weights. And all of a sudden, there was people at the room next door who were going to the pool, saw all these exercise classes with weights, and the classes expanded. And now, as part of a community within the local gym centre, they're doing weight classes, and it's an elderly community. Yep. Phenomenal.
Oh, it's amazing.
Of first of all goodwill, but also actually real prevention in terms of falls down the road.
We've a friend of mine in West Cork, Lorna, she does that. Like she in the small. I think she's in 5 of the small towns.
Right.
Around. She's in Clonakilty. I think she's in Bandon. She's in Corkmac. I think she's 5. And anyway, they're elderly fitness classes. And like that, she's 10, 20 people in each one. And it is amazing.
Brilliant.
Like our eldest client that we have in, and if you are listening in and you feel that you're too old to go to a gym or have a relative, like our eldest client in our own wellness centre is 80. Yeah. She's amazing. And like she's got stronger. She's recovered quicker from her second hip operation. She can lift stuff. She can move stuff. She's back doing housework. It's like the benefits are off the charts.
The Xwell clinics, I'm sure you've heard of these. They're up all over the country, set up by a Dublin footballer's father back in the day. They're phenomenal for, if you have a chronic disease, to encourage movement and encourage weights and encourage to get back, because people sometimes think, exercise is for younger people, it's not for me. But the effects in terms of reducing down falls, feeling well, improving cardiovascular is incredible. In terms, I know we've moved away from the heat and cold.
That's okay. I have another move. I have another question away from that anyway, and that's how is life in GP land?
So it's busy. The job has changed a little bit over the years. I suppose GPs have been trained over the years in chronic disease management, in terms of managing chronic disease in people in their community, and we're trying to keep them out of hospital. We've had far more now the ability to send people for scans. Hospitals have got very busy, so I suppose GP has got busy over that time, and you just need to be ready. It's still a really enjoyable job. Like I would encourage. Absolutely love it. I would encourage anyone who's thinking of medicine. We have medical students coming the whole time, UCD, UL. Our job, as I tell them day one, is to encourage you into general practice. It's a fabulous job. Sometimes the hospital can be overwrought and you don't have the independence that a general practice has. Being a GP, you're living in a community, working in a community, and you have that little bit of independence to look at different angles. So GP has you're still looking after healthcare, but every now and again you can reinvent yourself and look at exercise medicine, look at sports, look at psychiatric disease, look at the various things that's coming up in the community, and you can reinvent yourself and get involved again.
And what are you seeing with the for the colleges, for the recruits coming in or potential recruits coming in? Are they warm? Because GP generally, for the younger generation coming up into it, there is a lot of press around that, isn't there, in terms of struggling to replace GPs?
Yes. So I suppose, without boring people, if I went back 15 years ago, there was a cuts called FEMPI that the government brought in, and they savaged the generation of general practice. And I suppose the GPs in the job became very good communicators, letting people know. But one of the downsides, one of the advantages was the government listened through our union, the IMO. But one of the downsides is future medical doctors also heard what we were talking about, and it nearly scared them away of going into general practice. So now there's a lot of campaigns and trying to get people to come back into general practice. And I suppose one of the things is that as students come out to say, think about it. The hospital training that goes on is hospital centric, and we're sort of saying, right, look, as they come out to GP, it's to encourage people into GP. It is a great job. It's a busy job, and it is definitely a stressful job. So you have to take account of that in your own day-to-day living and trying to cold plunge or saunas or whatever it takes.
Thank you for coming in, first and foremost. Secondly, it's lovely to bring people in who love what they do. You have a real graw for what you do, and it translates even when you talk about it. You light up when you chat about it.
Look, I'm very lucky. I'm doing a job I actually like doing, and do I come home days with my hair standing on top of the back of the head saying that's tough? Yeah, but you learn that you have to do things. I think everyone has days like that, but on the whole, the day flies. There's never a dull day. When you're sitting in GP, you don't know what's coming in next, and some of it is taxing on the brain and cause you to go off and look at something and say, oh God, I hadn't seen that before, I need to go looking at it. So,
well, thank you for taking time to research the area for us and delivering really good balanced information. I'll stick up my sauna and my plunge for a little while longer.
Yeah, no, it was actually interesting to look at it, because actually the cold I had looked into before, but actually the heat one was really interesting, and the history behind it. Romans, Greeks, Turkey, Russians. Okay, maybe the science hasn't caught up yet, but maybe they knew something that we don't know.
It's been around. Well, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So, folks, off to the sauna and a little bit of gentle cold plunging afterwards. Ease into it. That's really important. As ever, that is it for another episode of Real Health with me, Karl Henry. You know where we are, at Karl Henry PT on Instagram, realhealth.independent.ie, and on the Irish Independent website. If you like what you heard, don't forget to rate and review. And we'll see you next week for more Real Health. Slán go fóill.